So your recent Pure Storage, your recent report, read this out, Drivers of Change, Pure Storage's IT Sustainability Impact Survey 2022, to give it its full title, basically looks at the impact of IT on environmental sustainability. So I guess the first question would be, what was the thinking behind, why did you want to carry out this survey?
Well, I guess the why is just the huge impact that IT has on the environment. Right? It is a huge consumer of resources, of all resources, of electricity, of water, of cooling. Now depending on which analyst you speak to, between 1% and 4% of the world's energy is used in data centers across the world. So given just the scale of consumption, we felt that it's important to look at how the world is addressing this and how people are making their decisions to try and minimize the impact of that. To put it in perspective, I don't know if you saw the BBC Panorama
yes,
program. There are thousands of homes in the UK now not being built because the power is going to data centers. And there's not enough power on the grid for new homes to be built, which is crazy. So just given the scale of that, we felt it's good to look at what are the impacts.
And in terms of the findings, I mean, at the high level, what did you discover in terms of whether or not sustainability is a priority for organizations?
I think resoundingly, organizations have sustainability as a priority. The problem is not in terms of, I guess, the overall importance. 90% of organizations say that sustainability is important to them. I think where probably some of the gaps start to show is in execution.
And in terms of that, I guess you're sort of alluding to the fact that maybe organizations don't have, or they haven't set themselves firm sort of goals and targets, and then perhaps even then, if they've announced them to the world, we're going to do this by a certain date, the actual execution, as you say, they don't know whether they're on track. I mean, dare I say, it's a bit like some, without naming names, some governments say we're going to be net zero by 2050, but that doesn't mean you can sit and do nothing until 2049 and then miraculously get there, in 12 months, I think.
Well, half of organizations say they're not going to meet their stated targets. So I think folks set targets, and maybe what happens is similar to what we see in governments. There's quite high level targets, but how those targets then disseminate to doers, people with local budgets, different organizations, does the IT team have a specific target aligned to the overall goal of the organization? That's where that then starts to break down, because I think to meet those targets, people are only going to achieve that when every decision people make, sustainability is part of that decision process. So although there's great visibility and there's good organizational targets, execution on the ground is not happening as fast as people would want to. So everybody's saying we're not going to hit our targets.
And I guess, I mean, the fundamental problem, you alluded to that, the Panorama program, is that sustainability and the amount of energy that IT infrastructure consumes seem to be almost incompatible. So how does that situation get addressed, or at least eased?
Yeah, so I think if we look at that, right? So maybe first let's take a step back. IT is actually, by most organizations, highlighted as a part of the organization that's falling behind in meeting its goals. Resoundingly, all organizations are saying that we won't achieve our sustainability goals if IT doesn't contribute in a meaningful way. But then IT is seen as a laggard in taking ownership for their sustainability outcomes, right? And what does that mean? That means that, for example, 70% of sustainability managers say that they don't get involved in IT decision making, or they get involved in IT decision making after it's already been done. So people go out and make purchases, around IT infrastructure and IT delivery, but sustainability isn't at that table, which then means that IT, more often than not, is seen as a laggard within these organizations in achieving their goals. So, I guess there's a lot of things that one could look at, right? Making sustainability to spend, right? Obviously reducing waste, right? If we, in IT provisioning, right, there's often a lot of over provisioning to to be available for just-in-time consumption, right? So what am I talking about? If you let's take the plane analogy, right? People often oversell seats on, airlines would oversell seats on a plane, thinking that everybody won't turn up. Yes, but then when you go to a flight, half the seats, aren't taken up. That happens in the world of IT too. There's over provisioning, because they want to be sure if everybody turns up to use their consumption, there's enough, which means that there's quite a lot of waste. So there's also, around data governance, a lot of fear that we might delete data that we could need in the future. So people just keep everything. So I think in the world of technology, there's a fair amount of waste that customers can get rid of. That would obviously reduce energy consumption quite a lot.
And I'm guessing the IT department, it has a role both within its own sort of department, if you like, to ensure that the equipment it's using is as energy efficient as possible, and as you say, as productive, etc. But also IT solutions, as we all know, as we're chatting today, rather than driving somewhere or getting a train or whatever it is, meeting, IT has a lot of positive contributions to make to a company's sustainability. So, but you're suggesting that the department at the moment is underperforming, under-delivering, so it needs to get more engaged with a company's sustainability objectives, both
yes,
overall and what the IT department can improve itself.
That's right. Now it's not us saying that, right? That's organizations saying that back to us in the study. So the resoundingly correspond, that people who responded to this survey said that they believe that their own IT departments are not meeting their sustainability goals, or not contributing enough towards the organization's sustainability outcomes. So that's not our point of view. That's just what the research tells us. Now, what we do see, definitely, Philip, is that more and more organizations are starting to make sustainability part of their decision making. It's written into tenders more and more, et cetera, et cetera. But I think people can accelerate that, right? I also think, the industry needs to find a way of common measurement so that it's very easy to compare sustainability outcomes. Because I think right now there's a fair amount of greenwashing going on. Everybody's talking about how green their solutions are. So it isn't easy for buyers of technology to see through all of this and to make all the right choices. So I think there's some responsibility on buyers to make sustainability a bigger part of their decision making. But there's also industry standards needed. There's governing bodies needed. make it easier for buyers of technology to compare energy usage of the solutions that they're going to buy.
And in terms of the responsibility for sustainability, I'm guessing it's now a board level discussion, but in defense of these IT departments that are perhaps getting, I won't say scapegoated, but people are saying, you know, they need to do better, is part of the reason, perhaps, whether the survey uncovered it or not, that they have not been sort of included, or, you know, there hasn't been the right sort of discussions with them. People are saying you're not doing enough, but they haven't really been involved in the overall, you know, company's sustainability plan.
Oh, definitely, you know, or they haven't been given specific KPIs around that. You know, we all know that, you know, in the end, as human beings and people, these are stressful jobs running, you know, mostly, you know, there isn't an organization today, I think, that can exist without, you know, the digital world and IT. You know, you speak to lots of banks who now call themselves IT companies, right, that take transactions. IT is such a big part of almost every organization's fabric. You know, so people have busy, difficult jobs, and then they have KPIs to hit, to, you know, get their bonuses, to, you know, their own performance plans at the end of the year, etc., etc. If they don't have specific KPIs against sustainability, and if they don't have specific measurements against sustainability, it's probably unfair then to look and say you haven't contributed enough. So I think first and foremost, the high-level sustainability initiatives from organizations needs to come down, you know, to each department in specific measurable KPIs, so that folks know exactly what they need to deliver. Make sense, Volk?
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. And in terms of, I mean, this is a slightly, well, it's very broad question and maybe isn't an easy answer, but in terms of what a sustainable IT solution looks like, I mean, are there certain characteristics, bearing in mind, as, you know, energy consumption is always a kind of a given, but I guess there are slightly more energy efficient you know, pieces of hardware out there. How would you characterize a sustainable IT solution, or does it vary depending on how and where it's deployed, etc.?
Yes, of course. Obviously, you know, if you're one of the world's largest banks, you're going to use more technology than, you know, the corner shop that you know, that sells the newspaper and so forth. But no matter who you are, you're going to have some form of technology. So I think the first thing, what does sustainable infrastructure look like, is one that's right-sized for the needs, right? Often there's quite a lot of over-provisioning of resources. And why is there over-provisioning of resources? There's over-provisioning of resources so that the organization can be very agile in answering new business initiatives, right? The last thing an IT organization wants to do is, the company has a great idea, we're entering a new market, we're building a new product, we're putting a new, you know, financial service out there, and IT says we have no capacity, we can't help you, come back in 4 months when we've stood up the infrastructure, right? That's no good, right? Because the business wants everything now, and you know, there's always a first mover advantage. You know, companies always want to be at the forefront of innovation and delivery, right? That's a tough dilemma for IT, you know, internal IT organizations, because they need to have this pool of available capacity without, you know, waste, right? So what is a sustainable infrastructure look like? Firstly, one that's right-sized, one that is, you know, just in time, right? So that you can provision just in time, so the business doesn't have to wait, but you're not over provisioning resources and therefore wasting resources, right? And then lastly, one that makes decisions based on sustainability. I can't talk for all of the IT infrastructure, but in the space that we are, Phil, we use 1/10 of the space, power, and energy of our competitors, right? So making a decision for one technology versus another can have huge impacts on the amount of energy, water, electricity, carbon that you use, e-waste, for example. So bringing all those things together, I think organizations can make a meaningful impact.
Okay, and in terms of, you hinted at it there, but in terms of Pure Storage yourselves, it'd be good to understand a bit about what you yourselves have done, I guess, as an organization, sustainability-wise, but also I know in terms of the technology offering, I think you say you're the only people that offer an energy efficiency guarantee, and you've got your Evergreen solution. So that's quite a lot to unpack, but if you can sort of talk us through what you as a company maybe have done, and then what you're helping your customers with.
Yes, no, I think there's so much in sustainability. One is obviously, as an organization, our own consumption of energy and our offices and our people and our own use of that, and that's one part of it. We obviously have strict goals around that, and like every organization, but probably the most meaningful impact that Pure can make is in our technology, right? And because our technology is used by thousands of customers globally in large data centers, so we look at a lot of things, right? Reducing e-waste, right? Fewer components to deliver the same amount of outcomes. And that simply is just smarter innovation, faster innovation, right? Using fewer components, fewer raw materials to deliver the same outcome. Our Evergreen technology, right, where we can reuse the hardware, and we can change the hardware underneath the service very efficiently. We significantly reduce the amount of e-waste because we throw fewer components away. The elegance of design in our infrastructure means that we simply just consume less space and power than our competitors do for the same outcome. Data reduction advantage, we reduce the data more than competitors. That has a huge impact on space, power, and data center efficiency. And then lastly, our Evergreen One technology, where we provision to the client a utility service, and customers pay only for what they use. And we just in time give them the additional capacity that they require, meaning that customers have significant less waste in their IT infrastructures from a data footprint perspective. When you put all of those things together, Phil, the advantages are immense.
And I guess a bit more broadly, I mean, clearly yourselves are taking sustainability very seriously, but what obligation do you think the storage industry does have to help customers on their journey? And I'm wondering as well, sort of maybe a bit of push, when people come to you and say, I need, X amounts of storage or whatever, do you think it's your role to ever say, actually, do you need that? Explain to me what you're trying to do. Actually, we can do this with half the amount or whatever it is. Or a storage company's just in the business, someone, knocks on the door and says, give me this. They just say, yeah, and don't sort of ask any questions. How do you see, the responsibility for storage vendors?
Yeah, I think we all have a huge responsibility. If we look at our beautiful planet, and I can see these programs. You watch David Attenborough and you listen to what collectively we are doing to the planet. I'm a fanatical skier, Phil, and every time I go skiing and and the glaciers look smaller and smaller, you cannot look at that and think that we don't each have a personal responsibility to at every level just consume less. And what do I mean by that, right? Is now obviously you don't want to consume less and hold your business back, but what you want to do is reduce waste, and what you want to do is still have that agility, but not have over provisioned resources consuming, you know, a lot of energy that's not being used. So yes, we have a huge responsibility. We have a responsibility to right-size solutions for our customers, to offer them, you know, innovative consumption models where they can consume just what they need. We have a responsibility to keep innovating so that our technology remains efficient from a power and space consumption. You know, use less raw materials, have less e-waste. We have a huge responsibility of an industry to do that. And in storage, you know, I think we can make an immense impact, because the world has a never-ending hunger for data. You know, and I don't know about you, but simple things. You go back on your phone and you look at all the pictures you're storing. You know, I'm storing pictures of cars that I sold, you know, years ago. That not because I don't care, but you forget. You forget to go back and delete things. You forget to, and it's just easier to store it. And so I think we all have a responsibility to say every decision we make in technology has a profound impact on the planet. Are we making the right ones for our planet?
And maybe just finally, I'm interested, are you now finding customers sort of coming to you and on their, you know, list of what they're wanting is, you know, so they want to understand your approach to sustainability, whether it's your own organization or, you know, how your solution can help them with their sustainability? Is that something that you're noticing more, or is it still, you know, we want to know how much money you can save us, how much space you can save us? Oh, and by the way, if it, you know, is green, you know, that ticks another box. What's the sort of priorities? Have they changed at all?
Well, I'd say sadly it's not where it should be yet. I think price still drives too much of the decision making, and I'm talking about upfront, you know, acquisition cost rather than total cost of ownership. I think there's still misalignment between sometimes the technology buyer doesn't have the energy cost in their profit and loss, right? That sits on someone else's. That sits in facilities P&L. That sits in someone else's P&L. So they don't even consider that in their cost analysis. So no, I think there's a long way to go for people to make better decisions in how they consume IT. You know, I think there's definitely some thought leaders in that space, but I think across the board there's a lot of talk, but not enough action.
Okay, well, I hope that our discussion today is you know, going to strike a chord with some people and improve the situation. But Wes, for now, I appreciate your time. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.